Want to do a video in reviewing the progress I have on my work with reloading black powder rifle cartridges with actual black powder. I started off 4570 and 5070 basically because here in the States there's a lot more information and the availability, at least it used to be for this panic started, of brass and bullet molds and that. You have a lot more choices with that caliber. It's a bit more popular here. And hopefully I was wanted to gain experience, get some techniques down, and then move on to like the 43 Spanish, 43 Mauser, or even the Verndl cartridge, a lot of the other more not so common used cartridges, and work our way up there. And so far there's a lot of books on reloading and techniques, both reloading black powder cartridges and shooting them. Kind of the benefits of it, it's a little bit more difficult than standard reloading. The benefits are it's safer in the antique guns, and it is a little bit different in terms of if you really want long range accuracy. A lot of the guys that shoot a lot, if you want long range accuracy in like the trapdoors or the sharps, then the black powder with soft lead bullets is the way to go. So what I did in all the different books, I reviewed a bunch of books both on the guns and reloading. And I went with the one book by Pat Wolf, and her husband J.S. Wolf wrote a book on how to replicate standard U.S. service ammo. And the thing about how he did it is basically to get better ignition, he opened up the primer pocket. And I did a video on reloading this. He uses original design bullets, suggests the diameter, the lube, and then he uses a full 70 grain charge compressed down with no wads, no drop tubes, no nothing. Basically you just dump the powder in, compress it with a compression die, very heavy compression, both in the 500 and the 405 grain hollow base bullet. And he tries to replicate it. People said it's great. A lot of people use that technique and did well with it. I tried it myself. I don't know if I just did something wrong or whatever. But the reason I chose to do that one first is he did not believe in using wads. There were no wads in the loads, no drop tube, no blow tube, no nothing. And basically you were supposed to get the rounds, 20 rounds out without no problem. My results were real heavy fouling, which with black powder, fouling is a problem. It's something you have to control. He had a formula where we, you take it and compress it, and compress so much for size and depth. I used his formula and everything, tried it. I got real heavy fouling, and the fouling was so bad, after 3 rounds I couldn't chamber one of these 500 grain bullet rounds, which it's unacceptable. I couldn't get it to work. The one thing I did find in all of this was I used a wad, and this here, it's an over-the-shot wad for making like a shot cartridge out of the 4570, I guess, I don't know. They didn't have the fiber vegetable wads. So I just, for the hell of it in my experimenting with having trouble with the fouling, and this is only 25 or thousandths thick, this paper wad. This is real thin cardboard. I put these wads over the powder underneath the 500 grain bullet, and I can get 10 rounds off without fouling. So I found out, regardless, not to say anybody's wrong or their book, wads are kind of necessary in this. So the next step I'm going is I did read a book called Loading the Black Powder Rifle Cartridge by Paul Matthews. That was a long time ago, over 20 years ago. And the problem we were dealing with black powder is the fouling. And a lot of people ask what is a blow tube. And basically the competition shooters and the guys that shoot a lot of black powder What a blow tube is, just a tube, you fire a shot, you put a little back end of a brass case or a tube or something in a chamber, and you blow down the barrel, and the moisture from your breath softens the fouling. Okay, so even if you do get the fouling under control, you have to keep it soft, because what happens is it hardens up, and then the bullet's like riding down sandpaper. It's like little miniature obstructions in the barrel. Will throw your accuracy off. The only thing about a blow tube, it's only good for about 15 seconds after you get done blowing down there. So it's a technique when you're competing and shooting one round after the other. A lot of people argue how to control fouling. I'm going to go and get a sampling. So far I've used Go-X. Everybody says Go-X, but in my past experience, Go-X leaves a real nasty residue in the barrel. Now, the way you're asking, all right, well, how did they do it back 140, 50 years ago? Black powder was different, and that's the one thing that Paul Matthews came up in his book. He did have an old can of powder and loaded some cartridges with 100-some-odd-year-old black powder, and yes, the fouling was soft, wasn't gritty and nasty like Go-X is, and you know, that's a difference. Black powder is not the same, so we're going to have to work around these problems. I wasn't happy with Go-X, but the makers of powder, you have Swiss, which is the most expensive, Schutzen, which is Schutzen and Go-X, and added about, they're all around the same price, give or take. Swiss powder is a good deal more expensive per pound. So the main powders you have is Swiss, Schutzen, Go-X. Graf's sells a powder under their company label. I'm not sure what it is. It probably is Schutzen. And then there is, it used to be the old elephant powder, which is now called Diamondback. You can still get it, but you have to buy it, like I think in cases. There's one place that has it. You can only sell it in either 10 or 25-pound lots. And then there is there's a powder made in Serbia, Kix or something, I forget the name, but I can get that also. So what I'm going to do is get a sampling of the different powders, the different manufacturers. A lot of people like to use Swiss, very popular. And I have used it in the 43 miles, but I was just fooling around, didn't pay attention, wasn't doing the study on it. So my next course of action in my experimentation, because like here with the Martini Henry, when you get into these bottleneck cartridges, which most of the other black powder cartridges are bottleneck, there's another, it's a little bit different than the straight ones. The straight wall cases are kind of easing away, and this here we're going to have to make sure that everything, nothing goes below the neck. Wads, whatever, so, but that's another story, but that's what we're going to work on. So the next step I'm going to do, because I ran into this problem, is I'm going to go with the other camp on reloading. And what that is basically, it's like the guy was saying, you should call this the 4560. Because what we did, and like I made the drop tube, the other techniques for loading are basically, you use a drop tube, and like if you watch my video on a drop tube, that gains you about an extra 100,000ths of an inch, or an 1/8 inch case space. So in other words, if you just pour the powder in, or you put it in a drop tube, the drop tube kind of aligns the powder, or gets it down to another 1/8 of an inch, 100,000ths or so. So then what I did is I loaded this test batch, which I'm going to run, and I have, I think I have Swiss 1.5, Go-X and something else. I'm just trying these out just to experiment. What I did is I took the powder that in the drop tube would be at the right height. And then to get just that, they use a light compression. You still have to compress, but only, instead of like 400 or 500,000ths, like a 1/2 inch compression, we're only going to go down, I think, 60,000ths.